hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Welcome to Rage Against the Mainstream, your full spectrum source for all things music, insight, and opinion. My name is Bill, and I'm joined here with Steve and a special guest.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Will.
Our special guest, Will.
So give everyone a rundown. Who are you? How do you know us?
Well, I'm friends with you guys. I decided to join this podcast today based off the topic that you decided to choose, which would be bands people love to hate.
Yeah, we're going to get into that definitely later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so have you saw anything new or interesting this week, Steve?
Yeah, so last week, excuse me, on Memorial Day, I did recommend that Dark Throne album, Old Star. It did drop on the 31st of May. And it's funny because I kept mentioning, like, they changed their sound. Definitely. It's something, like I said, when I heard that first song, The Hardship of the Scots, when that was originally released prior to the entire album dropping. For instance, we talk about genres that a lot of people aren't so familiar with, especially last week with the metal thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This album, and I talk about Soulside Journey being the first Dark Throne album. It was like traditional death metal. Then they went to that traditional, like very raw black metal sound. This album is like sludgy, slowed down, doom metal. Like the recording is actually like better than most of their stuff. And for a black metal band, that's like almost a negative.
Yeah.
But the album itself was very good. I highly recommend it. It's not my personal recommendation this week, but again, that is what did just release on the 31st of May. The album's called Old Star. It is by Dark Throne.
Nice. I mean, it's nothing new, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
This will make the 7th installment to where we've talked about this band. I re-listened to Metallica's S&M
Here we go.
because they're talking about doing an S&M 2.
Yeah.
It's worth a listen.
Disclaimer, we're not fucking Metallica fanboys. This just happens to be a rotating... This may just go to say of how good they are because they're constantly in the fucking loop, dude.
S&M, dude, could be considered a greatest hits album. I mean, in a sense, it is.
But it's a live
it's
recording.
different.
I mean, it's
it's a live recording, but it's also with the orchestra.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a reimagining of some of the songs.
Yeah, you're getting a different perspective.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I just think it's really good. And the fact that they're thinking about doing a second one, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, we don't know any specifics on S&M
what
2
they're playing or
Yeah,
if it's going to be, is it going to be the same orchestra? The same
it's the same orchestra, but I mean we're talking about almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
so it's going to be obviously different people.
definitely. I really hope they don't go too far in trying to do like some of their newer songs.
I
really
sure
hope
hope
they don't.
not.
I know they're going to have to just for still keeping the out depending on where they're at.
There's a
that
couple
point.
songs off of Hardwire Self-Destruct I don't mind.
Yeah, but
I don't mind.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say I enjoy them. Like
Yeah.
Moth in the Flame is pretty good. And Now That We're Dead, I thought that song was
Spit
pretty
Out
cool.
the Bone was pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's almost like we were talking about before. They're trying to go back to this sound that they originally had, but it's just not
like
working.
after Death Magnetic, they try to
Yeah.
wash away the sins of
You actually
Anger.
like Death Magnetic, or you like that song "Day It Never Comes," don't you?
Yeah.
I liked All Nightmare Long off that album.
Oh yeah,
I mean, there was somebody. I remember when I first heard it, it almost gave me a reminder of like And Justice for All era.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like kind of okay with that. If they could just get rid of Saint Anger, I would understand it better. Like it would just sound more of like their
exactly.
transition. But it's like they were forcibly trying to like bring solos back into it.
yeah,
I mean, obviously with Rob Trujillo being a part of it now, you get an actual fucking bassist.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
And I mean, no disrespect to Cliff Burton at all,
No.
but I feel like Robert might be one of the best bass players in that band.
What do you mean?
Like,
of all the bassists?
yes,
Well,
he's definitely
first
the
of
most
all-
well-rounded musician.
Well, first of all, he doesn't compare to Burton because Burton was kind of like identifiably like a master of his craft. He was like a
Yeah.
unique individual for the bass and especially in the metal genre.
But I mean, as far as like evolving the band's sound,
yeah,
I feel like Robert may have been. He might have been one of the best musicians.
he's very good, and especially when he was with Suicidal Tendencies. I mean,
Yeah.
he's definitely
dude,
got
he's
the
toured with
background.
Ozzy. He's
Yeah,
toured with
he's
Black
got a
Label
lot
Society.
of fucking background, man.
And if I remember correctly, I think he toured with Jerry Cantrell on his solo tour for Boggy Depot.
I can't confirm or deny that.
I'm pretty sure I saw a live video with him.
Okay, I'll take.
And it's like,
Yeah.
like this dude's been everywhere. But well off topic.
Well off.
On this day in music history.
On this day in music history, the date is June 3rd. Well, now it's 2019, but this first thing we have here is June 3rd, 1964. The Rolling Stones performed for the first time on American TV, where they're guests on a variety show called The Hollywood Palace, which is hosted that week by Dean Martin. They play their cover of Buddy Holly's Not Fade Away and endure ridicule from Martin, who quips, in quotes, "Their hair is not that long. It's just smaller foreheads."
Damn, burn. Yeah, if Dean Martin said some shit like that to me, I'd be like, all right, it's Dean Martin.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck it. You got me. Whatever. It's kind of corny as hell, but it's Dean Martin.
Yeah. Fuck. All right. 1967, 3 years later. This one's for you, buddy. Your band, The Doors.
We're going to talk about your opinion on The Doors, by the way. Continue.
Well, okay. The Doors released a shortened version of Light My Fire as a single, trimming it from the album length 6 minutes and 50 seconds to a radio-friendly 2 minutes and 52 seconds. They literally pulled 4 minutes out of that song.
That's embarrassing.
Damn. The group's first single, Break On Through, did not take off, which is strange because I probably know that song more.
That is like the one song.
Yeah.
You know?
But Light My Fire ignites. Ooh, I like that wordplay there. Going to number 1 and becoming their most famous song.
It's funny because their catalog is so extensive, and Light My Fire is kind of like the Stairway to Heaven of the Doors.
Yeah.
And especially that self-titled album. Like my favorite album is Strange Days. I absolutely love Strange Days because even like the song When the Music's Over being like the same length as The End, they kind of followed the same format between the albums. But Light My Fire, you can't fucking shorten that song to 2:52. It's the same shit that Queen went through in trying to have to shorten down Bohemian Rhapsody for radio-friendly purposes, and it's pointless. You're missing what did they cut out? The entire Ray Manzarek fucking keyboard solo, because that shit lasts for a long time.
I mean, maybe.
Well, I think you also have to realize too, like these songs, you're talking about this one, for example, it's 6 minutes and 50 seconds for a reason. They didn't just add a bunch of extra
Exactly.
shit. You have to listen to the whole song to get the whole,
You
And
can curse on
especially-
here.
especially
you can
with-
curse on these free radio airwaves, right?
Yeah, dude.
I got you.
And it's funny too because when you talk about long songs, Will, it's funny because eventually like Tool comes out to light where they're like recording 8-minute songs, 9-minute songs, and they always said, and I read the book Unleashed about them, and it's also with bands like the Doors and also like jam bands with the Grateful Dead and stuff like that.
Yep.
They go out there and they play these songs, and it's almost a jam session. They figure out when the song's done. They didn't go in there with a fucking format. They just came together. They
Exactly.
wrote a song
It's done
in the
when it's
moment.
done.
Yeah, and that song is literally going to produce an atmosphere. It's going to give you a feeling, and
Yep.
to write it and force it like okay, verse, chorus, hook, whatever. It becomes very played out, and like to shorten a song literally more than half, it's what the fuck.
Well, it's actually taking out 2/3 of the song.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
I bet you're happy about that, Bill, because I know how you feel about the Doors.
Dude, it's not that I hate the Doors. There's just something about them. There's like a factor in the music to where I'm not a giant fan.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's... I can't say it's Jim Morrison's voice because Danzig sounds a lot like Morrison, and I like Danzig.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about the band that I just can't get into.
you can't. Well, because I remember when L.A. Woman came out.
Yeah.
and I forget the critic review where they said it sounds like elevator music.
Nah.
It was like lobby music and stuff. A lot of their stuff.
I'm not going to go that far. Like I said, dude, I've read the book. I have
Which one? No One Here Gets Out Alive?
Yes.
The Morrison by Yeah. Okay.
I've read that, dude, and like I understand how important the band was. I definitely respect what they did and who they are. It's just not something I can get into. Like you'll never like Hawthorne Heights.
First of all, we're not even going to put them even in the same fucking league.
Oh no,
bro.
I'm not saying they're in the same
but
league.
it's like, I mean, the Doors are just different. I don't know if it's like again, to say like a lot of people will force themselves to listen to bands just based on how they are.
Exactly.
But the Doors, for me, like it's just weird because it's the same thing with Pink Floyd. Their albums are created and they flow a certain way, like the ups and downs, the drama, the slow parts, the upbeat.
Yeah,
parts.
exactly.
Because you figure when it starts with Break On Through and then ends with literally The End. I mean, the whole dynamic of the album, 20th Century Fox, excuse me, Light My Fire, as well as like Backdoor Man. I mean, these just bluesy, rocky acidy, like just these songs. I mean, it's just for the time it came out and be able to listen to that, you're not, and it's the same thing I said about other bands, like especially the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're not going to hear that sound from anybody else.
No, and you know, I mean, like I said, I definitely respect and understand the music. There's just something I just never got into.
It's okay.
And it also has to do with my upbringing too. Like I mentioned in the last episode,
Yeah.
my mom
Ozzy was
didn't.
God.
Yeah, Ozzy was God. My mom didn't like The Who. She didn't like Rolling Stones. She didn't like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
That's probably where my strong distaste for all these bands come from.
So to just sum this up so we can continue on with the news, I just want to ask you one question.
Okay.
And this is going to stay on here. We're not editing this out. Would you rather go see Sammy Hagar, Van Halen, or the
Or-
Doors in their prime?
What Sammy Hagar era Van Halen are we talking about? Like when he
Whichever.
first joined the band?
Yeah,
and,
like his prime.
Sammy Hagar Van Halen.
Thank you. Disgusting. Continue.
1969, Elton John's first album, Empty Sky, is released. Unfortunately, it only sells 4,000 copies.
So also, just with Elton John, just briefly, and I'm sure, you know, I haven't seen it yet. Just came out on Friday, 31st. Rocket Man. The
Rocket
Elton John
Man.
themed movie. I mean, I'm sure people who are fans of Bohemian Rhapsody are going to go see that as well. I mean, I'm just a fan of Elton John in general. I
Yeah,
don't know how you guys feel.
I really like Elton John.
I'm a fan of
Yeah.
Elton John as well.
I'm excited to see it. I really want to see Rocket Man.
I do
Yeah.
want to see that as well. I actually haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody myself
You
yet.
gotta see that.
But
I haven't
yeah,
seen
I've heard it's
Bohemian
really
Rhapsody
good.
either.
And it's
but-
funny because there is a lot of false, like, you know, moments in there, like that were fact checked that weren't right. But just as a movie, like we
Right.
talked about this too, with like the Straight Outta Compton, as well as like
Yeah.
you know the movie we recommended, the difference between a documentary as well as a movie. Just as a movie, it's very well done.
Exactly.
You know,
All right, 1971 year later, Jimi Hendrix's band of Gypsies is certified gold.
good.
Also in 1970, with the BBC refusing to air the Kinks' new single Lola because of its reference to Coca-Cola, brand names at that time were a big no-no for corporations.
That's crazy.
Their lead singer, Ray Davies, flies all the way from London to New York to re-record the line, in quotes, where you drink champagne and it tastes just like cherry cola.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's funny because you had to think-
Nowadays, they'd be like, yes, please.
Absolutely.
Please.
Especially the Kinks. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they did break out, but that song, as much as that's a song everybody's probably heard on the radio
Yeah.
at one point.
La, 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 la.
Yeah. And it's funny because at that point in time, it's like, we don't know who the fuck you are. You're not going to ruin our brand name.
Yeah, exactly.
But now it's like, please.
Well, now you get some stupid shit like Migos or something. They'll mention Coca-Cola. They'll be like, thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Keep us relevant so we don't have to release more bullshit flavors.
Yeah, for every unit that's sold, we'll give you 10 cents.
Please.
All right. 1982, Elvis Presley's fabled home, Graceland, is open to the public. I've been to Graceland.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned that.
It's pretty cool. It's nothing like insane crazy, but just to like walk around in like the space that a legend, a fabled,
That
like,
is, yeah.
larger than life human being. Like
Absolutely.
that's where he lived.
I would even just like to walk around the hotel where Sid Vicious killed, allegedly to the, I guess it's convicted, but yeah, where he killed Nancy. Just being in the presence of like history.
Yeah.
I mean, even without having to see anything crazy, just the idea that at one point in time, like a legend just stood right there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool.
That's the toilet he shit in. When he woke up and took his morning shit, that's
Were
where
you
he
able
went.
to shit in this toilet?
I don't know. It
What do you
was,
mean you don't know? You don't remember if you took a shit or not?
I definitely didn't take a
Would
shit.
you
At,
go in there like blackout drunk?
I didn't take a shit at Graceland.
You should have, dude.
I wasn't blackout either, dude. I think I was like 6.
Oh, you should have taken a shit.
Even more reason to do it.
Yeah, dude.
At that
Because
point, it's like,
nobody's
oh,
going to
it's
say
okay.
nothing. Oh, it's a 6-year-old pooping in Elvis's toilet. No,
Yeah, it's okay.
Can you imagine that? That's a cool story. Like, tell you, one day I pooped in Elvis's toilet at the age of 6. Talking to your grandkids and shit. It's cool as hell.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Year 2000. We're taking a giant jump here. The Allman Brothers guitarist Dickie Betts is arrested after allegedly trashing his house, threatening his wife's life, and then disappearing. He is captured and ordered to get psychiatric help.
Poor Dickie Betts.
Yeah. 2001, Stained released an album, Break the Cycle, and it started a 3-week run at number 1 on the U.S. albums chart. Isn't that the album that had It's Been a While on it?
Yeah.
Right. This is actually their third album. And I have to say, as far as Stain goes, that's really when I started to become a fan. I think
Oh,
it was
really?
probably, even after that, I think that was probably the best album they released.
I think
don't
that
know
is
that
there
song.
because it has Outside on it as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that is. I mean, we'll get into this later. I'm not a huge fan of Stain, but those songs, like you know them.
Yeah.
You know those songs.
There's so many good ones on that album. I mean, don't get me wrong; like the other albums had good songs too, but for me, that would probably be the best album they had. Sold 4 million copies.
Oh,
So
not too
Yeah.
shabby.
yeah,
All right. This is probably one of the funnier ones. In 2007, during a gig in New York, a fan throws something at Akon during his set. The singer brings the offender on stage, picks him up, and then hurls him into the crowd. Smack that,
Now that's
bitch.
just
All right,
amazing.
so I gotta
Yeah.
see a video of this because how
All
did
over the
that
crowd.
happen? Did like security forcibly bring him on stage and then Akon just like
Well-
Andre the Giant this guy threw into like a fucking crowd surf? Like how did this go down? Was it violent or was it like, hey man, I'm locked up and I'm gonna throw you out? You know what I mean? Like how did it go, dude?
I mean, I don't know. There's not really much on this, but
That's hilarious.
it doesn't even say like how this took place or why. Like this guy just randomly threw something and.
well, I mean, people goad people on stage all the time.
Well, yeah, don't get me
Like,
wrong.
remember the video of James Hetfield dodging shoes?
Yeah.
And then then Dave Mustaine with the one heckler, he calls him like a cousin fucker or something.
Yeah,
Or he's
dude.
like, this is what happens with multi-generational
Yeah, and they also
inbreeding.
stop shows from time to time where, like, I think Dave Grohl like saw a girl get like punched or something, and he stopped the
Yeah, he
show. and
kicked
he's
the
like,
dude
"Get
out of the
that
show."
fucker out." Yeah, but I'm just picturing like security like escorting this guy on stage, and it's like Akon's not a big dude.
No.
What was this guy like 5'0"? Did he just like pick him up by his like waist and his shirt collar? And
Well-
I picture like Andre the Giant when he picked up Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? In that
Yeah.
WrestleMania, that's what I'm picturing right now. But it's Akon, so it's even funnier.
Akon stopping mud holes in people's asses and walking them dry.
It's so cool.
Not to get off the topic for what you're discussing here, but you know, you have to say like too in 2014 when Akon, supplied the electricity to 600 million people in Africa.
Well, it's
You know,
funny. Did you see
kinda-
the meme about that where it's like Akon's the Black Panther and nobody's even realizing it?
Yeah.
He's got like apparently like a own like area where it's like about to start. It's like own currency.
Oh,
and all this
yeah.
crap. He's really doing a lot. Like
Oh, wow.
philanthropist work. Yeah, dude. He's really out there.
Good for Akon there. Props from Rage Against the Mainstream. Good
Yeah,
job, buddy.
I mean, I would definitely say so.
I fuck with Akon.
Oh, I love Akon's
I remember when
music,
Locked
dude.
Up came out. I was a little ass kid acting like I was in the fucking count.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love that fucking song, man.
And then you're walking around saying "smack that."
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Teacher sent into the office.
Yeah, you could not like Akon if you grew up in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Oh my God, yeah.
He was everywhere, and
He was.
everybody was singing with Akon. Everybody has a song with him. It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yep. Dude,
literally,
he,
like
was,
everybody.
he was everywhere for a very
He
long
really
time.
was,
Yeah.
dude.
Music news.
All right, so music news here, little updates. Hell Yeah announced first album tour since Vinnie Paul's death.
Oh God,
Yeah, man, rest in peace, Vinnie Paul, dude.
that's a tough one.
Yeah, they announced a new album, End Tour. It is the first since the death of, obviously one of the most well-known drummers, especially in the metal scene, Vinnie Paul. Obviously, if you're not familiar, Pantera. I mean, if you're not familiar at that place, dude, what the fuck are you listening to this for?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, Vinnie Paul was just an excellent, excellent guy, excellent drummer. And going forward, the album is called Welcome Home. It's going to be out September 27th. Title track it dropped back on May 17th. Also, the band had previously announced they were working on a new album prior to his death when he died at the age of 54. The record will feature some of his final recordings with the
Oh,
band,
that's
which is
great. That's
good.
awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. And it says here that they did have a couple shows at the event they had in Las Vegas. John Katz presented the band with an official proclamation from the Clark County Board of Commissioners declaring May 11th as Vinnie Paul Day.
There we go.
Yeah, Stone Sour drummer Roy Mayorga played with Hell Yeah at that show and will continue to perform with the band on the road.
Here's the thing, dude. When Vinnie Paul died,
Yeah.
the Grammys happened like immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
They did like the in memoriam, and they didn't mention him at all.
Yeah, I don't really want... Yeah.
Like that. Like I don't know. Like Pantera. I don't know if they won any Grammys, but I know they were definitely nominated for a lot.
Well, it's funny because...
I think Walk won a Grammy.
I think it did too, and it's funny
Like
'cause
you're not gonna say this dude's name.
it's
Are you
just
shitting
sad
me?
because Pantera alone, I mean, that is a band that, again, if you're not affiliated or like really into a metal genre, you're not going to just be a predominantly country genre listener and like
Yeah,
love Pantera.
exactly.
But Pantera is transcendent because I know a lot of people that you wouldn't think but love Pantera.
Dude, everybody knows Walk.
They're very yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows
Because
Walk.
like even if you go to bars just to hang out, that song will fucking come out somewhere.
Oh
dude.
my God, yeah.
It's almost like when you hear a Fleetwood Mac song and you didn't know it was Fleetwood Mac, and then you find out who it is. It's like you hear this song, "Walk" 1,000 times, and it's like, "Yo, Pantera."
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that song before. But yeah, that is a shame that they didn't mention him in that.
But it's good
'Cause it was
that
a
they're moving on.
Yeah, no, it's always good when you see artists move on, at least, and they are always too empathetic with the family as well. and
Exactly.
just, like, get the signing off for that. Also, here in news, Kurt Cobain pizza-soaked set list plate sells for $22,000 at auction. So it says here, a Nirvana fan bought a used paper plate that frontman Kurt Cobain ate pizza off once. And dude, it was sold for 22 grand. Now here's the thing: the sale took place at an auction. Put on, remember Julian's Auctions, same people that we mentioned last week
with
with
the
the
John
Beatles
Lennon.
shit. Yeah, they put on their Music Leon's event on Saturday in Times Square. The paper plate also had handwritten set list in black marker that we used at the 930 nightclub in Washington D.C. back in '90.
Oh wow, so this is pre Nevermind.
Yeah.
That's kind of
So this
cool.
has got a fucking set list written on it. Kurt Cobain ate pizza off of it. And it's a little paper plate, like grungy as fuck, perfectly, and it's got his handwritten set list on it. Before
I wonder
Nevermind.
what songs were on there.
I
there-
guarantee
there
you
had
it
to
was
be some
majority
Nevermind
Bleach, but there's
type songs.
definitely a lot of Nevermind shit on there. Because
That's
you figure
pretty cool.
90, they were definitely still playing some of that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Leading up to it.
Mhm.
But what songs I would be interested in now? It was estimated to sell for 1,000 to 2,000, but obviously went for 22 fucking grand.
That's insane.
What do you do with that? You frame it?
I don't know. Let's ask Connor.
Yeah, I'd say for $22,000 is going to get in a fucking frame on my wall.
I'm going to eat pizza off it too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I would probably do it. That's what Kurt would want.
Yeah.
I'm sure the fucking
That's probably what
marker
he'd
you
want.
wrote on there was obvious. I would eat one slice off of it. And
Yeah,
then it would
you'd
be
have
framed,
to.
yeah.
Just to say you did.
Yeah.
I ate off the same plate
Just to
as
be
Kurt
satisfied.
Cobain.
I would probably see if I could soak some of the grease out of the plate.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, I would take some of that.
That's a
grease
fucking
off.
problem right there.
Taste some of that Washington
you
DC
imagine, like,
pizza.
I suck
From
some-
1990.
I suck some of Kurt Cobain's pizza grease. Yeah, that's just, hey man, whatever.
Whatever floats your boat,
Is
dude.
DNA on there? Can we clone him?
No, that's not going to work.
Breaking laws of physics here at Rage Against the Mainstream.
I would like to know this. Let's ask Elon Musk.
Ask
What
the
can we do
audience.
here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get in touch with him.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame architect I.M. Pye dies at age 102.
God
Damn.
bless.
I.M. Pye, the architect who designed the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Yeah, he died at 102. According to the Associated Press, the legendary architect passed away in his sleep. He was confirmed dead Thursday morning by a spokesperson for his New York firm, Mark Diamond. No cause of death has been revealed to the public yet.
Probably old age.
Yeah, I mean, 102.
Yeah, like,
Like, what are we investigating?
what,
Foul play?
at this point, wouldn't
Yeah,
be old age.
For real. In a story with the Associated Press, it was talked about his love for architecture and design, noting that each project he created was one he wanted people to enjoy. I mean, obviously, the Rock and
It's, I
Roll
mean,
Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
you
people love
literally
it.
just talked about this, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
Just talked
Yeah.
about, when it was built.
Yeah.
On
Yeah, the
Music
possible
News.
locations it could have been.
It
Too.
could have been
Yeah, you literally
Philadelphia.
just- yeah.
Fucking awesome.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah,
I feel like they
you
did
gotta-
kinda
Instead, you
dodge
got to
a
drive to
bullet, though.
Cleveland.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, I haven't been there, but in my lifetime, I'm definitely
Oh,
going
yeah,
there.
definitely.
My father-in-law's been there multiple times. He says it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I would love to go there. That's like that's alone is like people are like, oh, we're going on vacation to Disney. I'm vacation to Cleveland just
Yeah.
to fucking see that thing.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Also, further in the news here, Soundgarden have unveiled plans to release live film in an album called Soundgarden, live from the Artist's Den.
That's cool.
Yeah, the material set for release July 26th in conjunction with Chris Cornell's Estate. The Artist's Den, it hails from February 17th of 2013. It was a live from the Artist's Den taping at the Wiltern in Los Angeles, California. It concluded the group's U.S. winter tour in support for their final album, King Animal.
I saw them on that tour.
Did you? Was it
Yep.
awesome?
They were good, dude. Soundgarden's another one of those bands. Like I love,
Yeah, you're
I love
not-
grunge, but there's just something about.
Well, it's funny
Soundgarden.
because like on a previous episode, Connor did mention Super Unknown being like literally, if he was stranded
Better
on the
than
beach,
your
that
hero.
being the best grunge. Now, granted, I absolutely love Chris Cornell. I loved Audio Slave.
Yeah.
I loved even of his solo stuff. I love Soundgarden, and I mean, this is I'm excited for this because I know you're
Yeah.
like kind of indifferent about them. Like,
Yeah,
you'll
dude,
listen to
I
them,
don't
but-
love
yeah.
them. I don't hate them.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's on, I'm not going to turn it off.
Yeah, it says real quick here too. The career spanning nearly 2.5 hour set comprised of
Damn.
29 songs and included Hunted Down, Black Hole Sun, several King Animal tracks, and they were all, by Crooked Steps and Been Away Too Long.
I'm so glad I finally get to hear Black Hole Sun live.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's funny. That song Been Away Too Long. I remember when that was first dropped. It was used in a Sons of Anarchy episode. And
You know
it was,
what-
like super badass. when I
You know what
first heard
also
it.
people tend to forget?
What?
The song Live to Rise from the first Avengers movie. That song was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what
Definitely.
song I'm talking about?
No.
Like the sun, we will live to rise. No?
I don't remember that.
That fucking song was
I
awesome.
mean, I only seen the movie one time, so I mean,
You only seen Avengers once?
I know. Yeah, I
Get the fuck out of here.
So, with mentioning these bands, I mean, obviously, we were just discussing too with you how you feel about Soundgarden. I mean, the reason why
Yeah,
I'm
I
asking
mean-
this is because, I mean, there's just, if you think about music in general, there's so many bands out there that people just have an immediate disdain to.
Yes.
Like, they're mentioned, and it should be, like, across the board, unanimous, like, don't like them.
Yeah.
And then you hear somebody who likes a band that you're like kind of thrown off, like that's weird, and you kind of have to get an in-depth idea of like what else do they listen to for them to enjoy that, and what's the reason
Exactly.
behind it? Because like I mentioned, there's bands out there that I hate, and it'll kind of be with the general consensus of bands that are hated, but a lot of it goes beyond just to hate for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I just want to hear. Obviously, we brought Will on here. He's kind of like the minority, well, probably the majority, especially with Bill setting the tone with Soundgarden. I'm probably the absolute minority, but I want to hear both your opinions, and
Well,
obviously I'll share mine.
Just to add, I have said this in previous episodes
About-
that I am the guy that'll stick up for these type of bands.
Of course.
Because I think about it more than just the image of the band or what they convey.
The preconception.
Yeah, I'm about the music. Like, dude, if you got good riffs and you got good grooves, that's it for
Lyrical
me.
content's important.
Exactly. Well, I mean,
Stage presence also. Live
Dude.
performances are a big deal.
yeah, exactly. But even like lyrical content, it's not really that. What's more important to me is the actual music itself. Like, if you have a good riff and a good groove, I'm
But then
in.
you're missing an important factor of, you have to understand a lyricist, the idea of separating itself to poetry.
Yeah.
The same way with instrumental work and going back to like orchestras and how you compose these songs. The poetry aspect of it, if you're going down there and you're just writing generic lyrics to fill a song, yeah, if the riffs are there and the music's heavy and it's catchy, it's listenable. But if I'm really going to like an artist, I got to go like the whole 100% in depth to figure out what's going on there. I mean, there's a lot of bands that I absolutely don't like that people will like, and it's weird,
exactly.
especially in the genres I'm familiar with and they don't understand it.
Well, that's the thing, dude. It's all opinionated.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why we have a vessel like this to be able to, bring people together or drive them away.
That's
right,
the point.
yeah.
So, from both of you, since obviously this is going to turn out to be a 2-on-1 situation, I can already fucking feel it the way you're both looking at me. You guys
You
have,
entered the lion's den.
yeah, you guys got like rape in your eyes. I can see it right now. Like,
No,
you're-
it's just
you're
ca- it's
you're
called
gonna-
preparation.
You're
There's a
trying to take
difference.
my opinion and bend it over
No,
with
no.
lube.
Nobody wants to
I
do
can
that.
already see
But
it.
we just can't have you on here, saying these things about these bands without them having a
without
defense.
having, of course, yeah.
There's got to be a defense.
I'm
for
gonna.
these.
This is all right. So
the
you're
different
going to
groups
hear
that we
it
decide
first.
we're going to talk about.
We're going to just set the tone immediately here on Rage Against the Mainstream. You're about to hear two individuals possibly stand up for your most hated bands.
That's
I'm
true.
excited to see how this is going to happen, and I'm going to just do my best to kind of like at least be what the general consensus says, but I'm going to give a reason.
Well,
Okay.
I think also before you're going a little too far there when you're saying the general consensus, because just because the people love to hate these bands doesn't mean that it's necessarily more people hate them than don't. It's just a lot of times people they're very forceful with their opinions.
Yeah.
And I think that's more or less.
Well, also, too, a lot of people, and I said this as well, like, because, for instance, we'll just start with the first band being like Nickelback.
Nickelback, yeah.
The first thing you'll hear is like joke of a band,
Yeah.
horrible, terrible, and then that's why I say general consensus because a lot of these people
cookie
will
cutter
say
corporate
that,
machine.
Yeah, we'll say that, but have no reason. It's the same thing, and I don't want to dive
Right.
into politics with just supporting something and having no reason why you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because.
Just because.
I mean,
literally.
Here's the thing, dude. The way I feel about Nickelback, and everyone has their consensus on it or whatever, but I have heard on interviews of people that we hold in very high regard that talk very
Supporting
good
it.
about them.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like, dude, in my opinion, there's no bigger advocate or no bigger person that can advocate for this band other than Jerry Cantrell. Jerry Cantrell has said that Nickelback is one of the greatest live bands he's ever seen. And from seeing Alice in Chains live multiple times, that's a pretty big statement.
Yeah. No, I can definitely understand.
I mean,
that.
and plus, dude, don't get me wrong, the Chad Kroeger vocal thing, I'm not a giant fan of it. It gets annoying. He's ripping off Eddie Vedder, all that other shit. But the cocksucker could play guitar, dude. He could play guitar. The drummer is fucking insane. Like, they're a very good band. And I feel like people associate the band in a negative light because of Chad Kroeger. That makes the strong distaste for the band. Where
that's-
if Chad Kroeger wasn't the singer,
yeah.
no one would hate the band.
Well, it's like the superficial value of it. It's
Exactly.
songs you heard. I mean, like Photograph.
Well,
there's several songs, and it's funny too because again, this is a band, especially me growing up in the '90s, early 2000s, huge. Like
Yeah.
Nickelback
Yeah.
was
Insane
just
huge.
So even with like Limp Bizkit, Korn. I mean, all these bands that generally I'm not going out of my way to listen to, especially with like Nickelback and Creed. I can't find anything there that like makes me like want to put on an album, makes me want to listen to like a song. Like there's just nothing in that musical value that's what triggers me.
Yeah.
For instance, and like, but again, when I talk about other bands of that era, like for instance, my genre, the people that I'm familiar with, that I grew up with, that I listen to music to with, you put on Korn, like they ain't gonna hear it. They don't fuck Korn type attitude.
Yeah.
And I expanded more as I go to because that first Korn album,
it's pretty good.
it's pretty fucking good.
It's
All
groundbreaking.
right, because it is, and that's the thing. We talk about what Nirvana did the same way Korn tried to pave that way for that NU, groove,
Exactly.
like metal type scene. And,
Yep.
But then going back to like these other bands, because even Will, you mentioned like Stained.
Yeah.
Like, see the thing with Stained is, I mean, the backstory, about that band, especially with the singer, having his problems and like going to prison and everything with a lot of things he wrote on. That's where I kind of like appreciate it.
Right.
But then it goes to the musical sense. It's just so like I feel like I don't feel like if I put on a Pantera album, if I put on even like an Eminem album, if I put on any type of album, especially like when I brought to the Doors, like there's something it does to me where I want to listen to more.
Well, that's kind of how Stained was for me.
Yeah.
I'd say like when that album released and, being at that time, 15, 16 years old, still in, high school, going through your difficulties, you kind of put the album on and it kind of just sets the mood and it makes you just feel like everything's okay. Like you kind of almost relate to like some of the songs, some of the lyrics, and it kind of just at that time put
That's
me in a place
understandable.
that really felt like
100%.
comfortable. So that's why it was like always like, hey, you're having a shitty day. Let me put on Stained. Let me listen to this. Or, not necessarily Nickelback. That wouldn't be my choice for that time of the day. But, like Creed as well. Like, it's another band we're going to talk about. But, like, Creed was another band that I would just put on, the songs. Weathered was one of my favorite albums from them. But, again, the music just kind of related and it just spoke,
It's funny you mentioned too, like time, because I was actually talking to you about this, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
That is like that's the one thing people will never understand about music to be able to immediately discuss. That's not the first thing that usually comes to mind, but it is the best explanation on trying to describe why you like an art. It's the same thing with tattoos. Be like, why'd you get that?
Exactly.
You don't need to know. It's a personal perception, and that's
I
why
wanted to
never
get it,
can-
asshole.
That's
That's
why I
why.
can never judge people with their taste in music, because like you're mentioning with like coming home having a bad day and you're putting
Right.
on like It's Been a While or like Outside or one of
Yeah.
those songs and being able to listen to it and having that nostalgia behind it.
right.
That's the same thing with people that listen to music from like, the 70s and the 60s that you
Exactly.
didn't maybe understand at a time, but it's like when they heard those songs in a certain moment of their life, it
Right.
just is
It related
embedded
to them.
Yep.
And that's why I talk about like certain artists, especially in the 2000s, that typically are not enjoyed by. And I'm going to go out there with the guilty pleasure type aspect, fucking like the whole pop punk, like early 2000s emo scene.
Yeah.
you know, Newfound Glory, Sum 41,
My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance, The Used,
Take It Back Sunday.
Taking Back, Brand New.
Yeah.
I mean, Brand New, especially with us being in, you know, high school, that was such a like a groundbreaking band at
Exactly.
that teenage years of like the people that were listening to it. It was like
Yep.
Deja Entendu is an excellent fucking album.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's funny because typically the people that I surround myself with, the music that I came up with, if I mentioned, like there were even people I knew that hated Tool. And I
That's
refuse, and like that's the thing. When you're younger, you're kind of like in that peer pressure zone where you're gonna like and hate things,
Exactly.
just to fit in concept. But
Yep.
as I got older, I'm like, no, dude. Like, bro, if I want to put on Taylor Swift, I'm gonna put on T Swift.
Right.
If I'm
Exactly.
gonna listen to Kesha, I'm gonna listen to fucking
Well, see,
Kesha.
it's just like what you just said, like the bands you just named. Like out of those bands, I've heard of them all, but I'll be honest, I haven't really heard anything except for like Sum 41.
Yeah.
So I really think, like you said, growing up, it really develops on like what everyone else is listening to. If someone was listening to like My Chemical Romance all the time, like, hey, listen to this, like maybe I would have got
It would
into
be
that band.
embedded.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
necessarily like, oh my god, this band's great. It's necessarily like your experiences and
Under
how you get
Oath
into
is
that.
another one from
Like,
around that time.
Just
Yeah.
just to back up, like to Nickelback, for instance, like Nickelback is it's just everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go shopping. You couldn't watch a movie. Like it's just everywhere.
knew
Every
as a
radio station you
wise
change
man.
to, no matter what station you put on, it's on. You know,
to the bottom of
this song it's a
bottom.
country song, so it's on the country station.
Yep.
This song it's on the rock station. This song's on
yeah.
Q102 because
Yeah.
they're just all over the
Well,
place with their
this
music.
also goes into the thing that we were talking about before. Like they're doing their job, dude. They're writing. I mean,
to
then
try
again,
to
we don't
appeal
know
to
if they're
everybody.
writing these songs like themselves or they're getting them for producers or whatever. But if these dudes are writing these songs by themselves, they're like songwriting geniuses, dude. Like that, maybe not geniuses.
Yeah, let's
but they
not-
definitely know how to make a commercial song that will sell.
But then it's like, do you wonder? I mean, because Nickelback, Creed, I mean, they're never in the news with like the controversy and things like that.
Well, Creed is with Scott Stapp.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that dude's a nut.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, typically, like when you hear about a band,
Yeah.
right, like when we talked about like way, you know, a few episodes prior with like the Dirt, and you got to know information, like even Ozzy when he was coming up, and you know other bands with their issues and coming to light, and you know especially like the grunge scene, like those artists were just well exposed for being just like you know degenerates, so to speak,
Yeah.
you know, and it's with these bands, it's I start to wonder with a lot of them like that become commercially successful, and like what are you writing the music for?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it,
like-
it gets
and
to a
that-
point of credibility.
And that's where, like, again, where Stain comes into play, especially because I know those songs definitely have some meaning behind them.
Yeah.
On why they were written. They have some passion for his craft alone. But then again, that's for me where it separates because I didn't hear it in a specific time. There was other music I was listening to.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, especially like Fleetwood Mac. I mean, that's just like perfect, like heartbreak music. You know, if I was like
Yeah.
fucking 13 years old, I was the weirdo listening to like Go Your Own Way. You know what I mean? It's just, there's a different type.
I'm getting old.
Yeah,
dude.
Well, you also
Yeah.
got to think too, like you know, when you're in the car with your parents, like that's the shit they're listening to. So that's what you listen
Exactly.
to. Like now, like when I drive down the road with my son, he makes me put on like the new rap and stuff, and it's like, well, you're never gonna get the like you don't even know who the Beatles are.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get that appreciation because I don't make you listen to it, not force you, but so
Yeah,
it's for
exactly.
you to experience that music, you have to hear it at some point. Somebody has to influence.
Well,
you
you are your
to get into
environment.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Well, it's like I said in the last episode, like you are who your friends are type attitude.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like it's almost that nature versus nurture concept in
Mm-hmm.
psychology. You know, it's like the idea like you're going to be brought up a certain way.
Yeah.
These things are going to happen, and a lot of the reasons you listen and the way you dress and everything comes from the people you surrounded yourself
Exactly.
with.
Coming from, you know, growing up and my surroundings, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a band that people love to hate for no reason is Warrant.
But you know what's funny? I don't even fucking like really hate Warrant.
Dude,
Like Cherry
people-
Pie, dude.
Well, dude, there's even more than just Cherry Pie. Like that was just one single.
I know, but
like,
it's
their
saying, like-
album "Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich" is insane.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That's a band where I never like. What really defies like for me to listen to an artist and really like a band, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go out and seriously buy an album or listen to a whole album front to
Right.
back, and I'll listen to it more than a handful of times.
Yeah, exactly.
Warren, I've never listened, but here's the thing: that song "Cherry Pie," I heard that when I was first like listening to Judas Priest. You know, just heard "Ride the Lightning."
Yeah.
you know, and then like
It
you
fell
know,
to the
just-
wayside.
It was like I was trying because my parents were never into like metal or harder rock music,
Yeah.
so I kind of had to find it on my own. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm going on like LimeWire and just fucking downloading whatever. You know what I mean?
I remember those days.
You know what I mean? Yeah, dude. And it's even funny because like I'll mention a band that a lot of people fucking hate, and I'm sure you probably both like them. Journey.
Oh yeah, I love Journey.
A lot of people I know.
Journey's just one of those bands, though. Like they are like, they're more than just like a band. Like they're like almost like a lifestyle, if you will. Like
Yeah.
like they're one of those bands like we were talking about before with bands that you see every summer.
Yeah.
Like Journey is like the XTU or MMRBQ.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like like when summer rolls around, you and your parents or whatever, your parents are going to invite you to go see Journey.
Just like how Billy Joel like played Madison Square Garden every single year for
Exactly.
You know what I mean, it's like a routine. It's an event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But back to Warrant, dude. Like Cherry Pie is probably their most well-known song.
Yeah.
Their second known is probably that song Heaven. You know, Heaven isn't too far away.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
That song.
Yeah.
Dude, there's songs that are like heavy. Like there's a song called Uncle Tom's Cabin that's off that album.
I mean, I
You
think
never
also
hear
too
about it.
when you talk about like people who love to hate, like for instance Warren, I think like you said earlier, like people just say like, oh, I don't like that shit. Like you haven't
Yeah.
even listened to the album, you didn't give it a chance. Like you just want to, for whatever reason,
And that
like,
bothers
no,
me.
I'm not doing this.
I hate that.
Like, dude,
give
like
it an opportunity.
in Pearl Jam 20, which we watched, a little
Several
while
weeks
ago,
yeah.
there was an interview with Andy Wood, and he's like, I don't want to be the next Warrant, and it's like,
It's like why?
yeah, like I mean, and like that was like the grunge thing, and
Yeah.
they were rebelling against that hair metal deal, but like I feel like they just got like a bad rep because of the era they came out in. And you're thinking of bands like Firehouse.
Well,
and
you
shit
gotta
like
figure
that,
they're
and
coming out on like
Winger.
the tail end of some of like the greater musicians of that genre. Because you
Exactly.
figure, especially with the hair metal scene, it was almost like the Titanic. Only so many people could get on a fucking lifeboat. Like
Exactly.
Skid Row made it out, and they still have credibility. Van
Yep.
Halen, obviously being a part of it, they're always going to have credibility.
Yep.
Even Motley Crue
Bon
isn't a
Jovi.
love-hate thing, but they still are going to keep their credibility. Then other bands that kind of just fell to the wayside, like Rat, Poison. I mean, Scorpions are like well known to be hated,
Yeah.
but they barely made it on there. But then bands like Warren just didn't make the cut, so it's like generally it's just going to be like I don't like them.
Exactly.
But again, that's why I have to ask like why? What's the reason? And I'm not going to go out on a limb to stand up for Warren because again, I'm not a huge fan, but I don't like the song Cherry Pie. I didn't fucking
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't say, oh, this sucks.
A band that I feel like is actually like credible to hate, and like there's actually good reason for it. U2. Remember a few years ago
When they put the song on the
Well, yeah,
fucking
we're-
iPhones, dude.
I go into my iTunes
I'm
and
still-
I'm cruising through and I'm like, man, I don't ever remember
and
downloading
you couldn't
U2.
delete it.
Yeah, and you
Right.
couldn't delete it.
And I'm very OCD about organizing my library ever since I had like a black and white iPod before there was even iPhones or anything. I'm very OCD about it. So the fact that I had to constantly scroll through my artist list and U2 was on
Yeah.
there and it wasn't by choice.
Like Bono,
And
come on.
Too, I understand the reason why they did it. Like, oh, let's get our music out. But like for me, because of the fact that they forcefully
Force-fed.
put that shit on my phone,
now I
I refuse
don't
to
want
listen
it.
to it.
Yep.
Didn't even
Just
open
out
it.
of principle.
Like, you know what? Fuck
And it's
you.
not even like
you're not going to tell
U2's
me what I'm
like-
going to listen to.
It could have been good.
What is
Maybe.
U2 struggling for like listens or something? Because I don't think that's the case. I don't understand. Like, did they think they were doing us a service?
Hello.
I don't even know how that was
This
even possible
album
for them to
has
just do
got
that.
But the
to
fact that you
go.
couldn't delete it, like
Yeah.
there was no
It was just
choice.
stuck on there.
Like I can understand if you put it on there, like cool, thanks for doing this. I'll keep it around and give. Oh, I don't really like it. Let me get
I'll
rid
listen
of it.
to it
Or
once.
like, you know what?
Put
Just
it-
put it on there like it's, hey, we have this album out. It's free to download.
Yeah, and allow people to delete it if they want. But also, when you talk about bands that generally are just hated, and it can kind of like ICP, Insane Clown Posse.
Insane Clown Posse, dude. Here's the thing. I feel like Insane Clown Posse, dude, has gotten a bad rep because of their fan
The
base.
Juggalos.
The Juggalos.
Yeah.
I feel like they've ruined any credibility that band ever had. Like, the big thing with them, dude, is they were a major influence on Eminem. Like, they were as much of an influence as the Beastie Boys were.
Well, for his battles, you mean?
Huh?
For Eminem's like battles with him, like over the music.
No. Like, Eminem has cited Insane Clown Posse as an influence.
It was like the aggression and like
Yeah,
pretty much like
and
fuck
dude,
you,
like
attitude.
like I was listening to Insane Clown Posse the other day, and they are artists now. Like some like underground rap artists are like very reminiscent of that Insane Clown Posse sound. Like it's like I guess they call it like horror rap or something.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's what they considered Eminem especially that as well.
exactly. And I don't feel like they're that bad.
So with that band in general, I mean, majority of the time you meet, especially the following, it's just, dude, they're just hard to get along with. I mean, but again,
Yeah.
it's really based like the music kind of influences it, and then they develop the personality, and then it's like trying to outdo each other to become this like really outlandish group, and then that's what they became. But the band itself, the music, like that's another band. There's just nothing in the music.
Yeah,
and I totally
I can
separate
understand that.
The idea is like, because I've seen like with ICP shows. I mean, when they're out there with the tanks and they're out there blowing up, the balloons, and they're out there like doing. I mean, they're just very. It's like almost a gang type atmosphere with them, and also with that aside, just the music alone, it's like
I will give them a little bit of cred though. The Rock Allegiance Festival that just came through. Violent J tried to drop kick Fred Durst.
I saw that.
Yeah, dude, like he came within inches of
It
fucking
was
laying
a really
him out.
fucking weak drop kick. Though.
It was a weak drop kick, but dude, if he would have landed that shit, that would have been awesome.
Yeah,
That'd have been like beyond street
it
cred.
was pretty funny.
I mean,
like
I have to say, like, because obviously a friend of mine, he's a big ICP fan, and
Yeah.
back when we were younger, again, this is going back to like 17, 18 years old. This is the influence of the music that was around at that time for him and I. I have to say, like, I never really had an issue listening to their music. I don't think it's bad. I think it's. I guess it doesn't really have a place to, per se, like on the radio, as to per reason why you never hear it.
exactly.
So it's like, and I
that's
feel
why
like
you'll never hear
a
certain
few
Eminem
episodes
songs
ago,
off the first
you
Marshall
talked
Mathers
about
album.
like bands that like kind of basically mold themselves around however they can make more money, and not about how they can play their music. Like for
I
them, they're
agree.
not on the radio. It's not about like, push albums down people's throats. We're just going to write these songs. We're going to sing it. We're going to have a good time. I mean, you can look it up. All the time they're doing like donations for like Toys for Tots. So it's
Yeah,
like
and
you have
charity
this big,
stuff, yeah.
bad group or what you think, and then over here they're doing all this charity events and stuff. And I feel like sometimes because of the bad rep, they don't get the credibility that they deserve in some
No,
respects.
that's interesting
I
insight
agree with that,
because
yeah.
like when you can separate the idea, and as I mentioned, like even like politics, religion, like with trying to force someone down something's throat and them just being outright rejecting it or trying to go against it, but not really understanding why.
Right.
And the idea with like ICP, again, the music, that's what I try to limit it to. Like we're talking about artists, we're talking about musicians, we're talking about the sound they produce,
Yeah,
and not
just
so
the
much what they
music,
do.
Right.
And for on a respect level, because let's say like ICP wasn't ICP, but instead was like, for instance, Soundgarden.
Yeah.
And they weren't as well known, but they were hated, but they were doing all these things behind the scene. They weren't on the radio, they weren't doing
Right.
things. The name itself, like I like Soundgarden, so I'm going to like this, but I'm not going to like ICP.
Yeah,
just because
exactly.
for what? You know,
Right.
again, but
Yep.
it's like the music for me, I never, and you mentioned like you had a taste for it, just what
Right,
came
exactly.
up as you were coming up. And,
Right.
but I'll respect that. I love when you hear about artists that are able to make a name and make a following and also be able to support themselves and not be struggling day to day through playing bars and shit.
Yeah.
And you never hear them on the radio.
Yep.
That's like that's such a valuable thing in music that people fail to miss because
Yeah.
a lot of people will listen to stuff because they heard it on 93.3
Yep.
or they heard this fucking dude on whatever radio station and saw a music video on whatever and
Right.
All right, well, let's jump to an even bigger extreme. Totally opposite end of the spectrum. Boy bands.
Okay.
NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, LFO,
Yeah.
all them bands.
so you can start with this because I mean I know
I am a fan of Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
I'm not
I am
afraid.
as well, yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit it.
I get where the music goes, and again, we're going back to when you're growing up around that time. Backstreet Boys were a big influence. They're everywhere, like Nickelback.
Exactly.
And you just can't put aside the amount of albums they've sold, the popularity. They're huge, and I understand that maybe you feel different about the kind of music, but I enjoy the music. The lyrics are good. You'll hear me singing "I Want It That Way" on a drunk night with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I know Bill you mentioned, but here's the thing where you talk about like the peer pressure aspect.
Right.
Like coming up, you were almost like soft, like quote unquote wimp, as a little kid when you were listening to like these bands, like
Exactly.
Backstreet Boys.
Oh.
But here's the thing that's really fucking funny about it because that's again. When those songs come on, I'm not going out of my way to change it.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
they come on, I don't mind NSYNC. I don't mind Backstreet Boys. I don't even mind LFO and 98 Degrees.
Yeah.
I don't mind them. Like when they come on and it is that nostalgic value. But here's the funny thing. I know a lot of people when they were younger that probably talk shit on these bands. But especially who's doing the reunion?
NSYNC.
NSYNC.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people
No,
that
no,
are
no.
The Backstreet Boys.
No, Backstreet Boys aren't No,
They're already
98
reunited.
Degrees is doing a
who's doing a reunion show?
I don't think any of them. I think 98 Degrees is. Backstreet Boys has a residency in Las Vegas. NSYNC will never get back together
So it's
unless all the members agree on it.
but
And I
didn't
don't think
something big
Justin
happen
Timberlake
with like
wants to do
one
it.
of them becoming super relevant again for something? So is it based on the residency?
Yeah, it's Backstreet Boys.
Because I just know a lot of people that will come outright today now that they're older and they stop caring about what other people think, and
Right.
we're so fucking gung ho to go see Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, any of them, that at one point in their life they were like,
Ugh, never listen to that. That's disgusting.
and it's cool because you get to see the progression of when you get older and you start to lose that feeling of like liking something just because other people
Everybody,
don't.
yeah.
You
or
won't admit
caring
it.
what other people think.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'll tell you right now. Yeah, I say that I like the Backstreet Boys. In high school, nobody said shit.
Nobody.
The guys never sang any songs.
Nobody.
They went home in their rooms, closed the door, made sure nobody was around, and turned that shit
and they're
on.
sitting there
yes.
crying the shape of my heart.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it's funny too,
You know?
and I don't want to bring in his, what he did, but when we mentioned Michael Jackson a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
I remember listening to Thriller with my fiance in the car, and she even broke it to me at one point. She's like, "It's really nice to be able to listen to this with you because I love this music, but I was never able to admit it." Just
Yeah.
because the general thing around
Right.
the people she
I
grew
got
up with, like,
ridiculed for listening to Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
crazy
I
because
did.
it is, and that's why I really like when you do come to that real, just honest view where you can admit. Because again, if you like fucking Nickelback, I'm not going to say you have a shit taste in music. I'm going to
Yeah.
understand that you have a different taste in music because it's
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
complete understanding. Like I don't know where you heard that song, what it did for you, and that's the blessing of music in general.
Exactly.
Like
That's what
it's-
music's for.
Exactly, dude.
know?
It's just a produced feeling.
Yep.
It's a produced emotion. Like, I mean, how many times have you heard a song and immediately a memory came to you
Yep.
from like when you were
Yeah.
12,
I mean, look
13
at this
years old?
photograph. You know,
No pun intended. I mean, but that is the butt joke of the whole situation. I mean, they've just become that notoriously known to hate band. But again, like I said, it doesn't matter what you like. Like music in general, as long as you're listening, dude.
Yeah.
Like if you find
Yeah.
something, music is absolute therapy, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just at least you have some
Exactly.
value behind it.
Before we move on to our review of Hired Gun,
Yeah.
I do want to talk about a meme band real quick. That's gaining some traction again. Smash Mouth.
Yeah, and
That All Star thing that's going
Yeah.
on.
wait, what did it get brought back up again?
There's that dude John Sudano.
Yeah.
he's actually from this area. He was in a local band called Me Versus I. Giving a
Okay.
shout out to those guys, even though they're not together anymore. Dude, it was the funniest thing. Like I was on Facebook and I saw it said John Lennon Imagine cover. And I was like, I didn't know this fucking dude could sing. I know he's a good drummer,
Yeah.
but I didn't know he can sing. And dude, like the piano came in and shit. Then he's like, somebody wants to. I was like, what the fuck? And then next thing you know, dude, you're seeing these videos everywhere. And then YouTubers like Jared Dines are like making fun of this like Smash Mouth thing. And then out of nowhere, dude, they blew back up. And it's like all because of the song from Shrek.
Yes.
right?
Like, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Do you remember the first Smash Mouth album? Like Walking on the Sun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
That was a good
pretty good.
Yeah.
Like for what,
I always
for
liked
what it was
Smash
back
Mouth,
then, it was pretty good.
To me, like Smash Mouth, it had its time, and it was good music. To me, I would compare them like with like Sugar Ray, for instance. Sugar
Yeah.
Ray, I always thought was a good band. Again, it was they're not around anymore, but
Yeah.
it was good music for the time.
What was that song?
Which one?
Some-
By
Someday.
Sugar Ray.
Every morning.
Every morning there's a halo.
Yeah.
Then someday, when the world has passed me by.
Yeah, you had
And
all
it was,
those, and you know what's funny?
I
A lot of
just
those
wanna
songs
fly.
too were like part of that like American Pie scene, like all those like weird, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like they just can't. They were just like one hits, but it's just like a whole, like just all those songs just blanket like your childhood.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they all have like different feeling. It's almost like one song by Lit. It's
My Own Worst Enemy.
My Own Worst Enemy. I mean, just there's so many songs like by artists that just never broke through, and then they're either hated or loved. But I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of those songs, it's funny. But yeah, going back to Smash Mouth, I'm not a huge fan. Again, this is another band, but again, if those songs come on, I'm not going out of my way. Like All Star, I'm not going out of my way just to turn it off. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't like, oh, this is horrible again. It's just
You know what? Maybe we can get him in here for an interview and ask him what the whole like stigma around All Star was.
yeah.
If you're listening to this, John, please contact us at ratmpodcast@gmail.com. We'll schedule an interview. All right, so guys, last week we suggested for you all to watch the movie Hired Gun. It's a documentary on Netflix. The movie is based around studio musicians that have appeared on some of your favorite songs. Maybe not so favorite songs, whatever.
Right.
But they were on there. Some of them you know, some of them you don't know. Some of them were credited, some of them weren't. How did you feel about this movie, Will?
Well,
Well, actually, let's just give a background here. Me and Steve are musicians. Will is not. Will is
Right.
just an avid music fan. Coming from a place of not knowing, like the inner workings of
Right.
the music industry, what did you think about this movie?
So, well, let me start off. I think, as a general consensus, like the film itself, I thought was very good at depicting what it was meant to depict.
Yeah.
So, watching this film, and it's really interesting to see how all this is formed because you talked about Hired Gun as far as the drummer, going around and waiting for a band to pick them. I really didn't have an idea that that's how it was.
Yeah.
I thought like you see a band like let's just say Kiss or whoever it may be, like you have your members and like that's it, that's Kiss. I didn't realize that it was like sometimes after you tour, a drummer drops out, a new one steps in.
Exactly.
Or even sometimes midway through, someone steps in, someone steps out.
Especially in a band like Kiss, you'd never know.
Yeah.
And you don't even know, they call you up and you're like, hey, next week we're on tour now. Next week I need you to learn all 17 of the songs we're playing, and you got to be like ready to
Exactly.
step in. And I also as some of the things I watched, I can't get it out of my head. Seeing Billy Joel and during that film when they talk about how he treated his hired guns per se,
Yeah.
and how they're treated in general going through. Not to try to sum it all up in like a 2-minute conversation, but there's definitely points in there that I had no idea, and to see like people that wrote songs and wrote the music and got no credit for any of it at all. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say let's turn this into a Billy Joel bashing minute, but this movie definitely made me think about him in a different light.
Absolutely. Oh yeah,
It
absolutely.
definitely did.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to give you guys a quick rundown. I mean, obviously you've watched this movie because we've suggested it to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All the loyal listeners here. Billy Joel had moved away from a big band, and he wound up getting a New York style band that would be his backing band. He recruited a bass player, a drummer, and a guitar player. They toured, wrote music together for years, decades.
Right.
And on literal, but actually, he never even told them.
No.
And he, replaced the guitar player and the bassist with new people, and kept the drummer. And it puts him in an awkward position. Liberty DeVito, it puts him in an awkward position because it's like it's like he said, I have a wife, I have kids, I have a house. What am I going to do? Leave?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
like in the in the area of being a hired gun, you never know when your next job would be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he continues to play with Billy Joel. I think it winds up being like 30 years or whatever. And he fell in hard times. He asked Billy Joel like, hey, if any scraps come your way, can you kick them to the side for me? I could really use a bone right now. And Billy Joel was flat out just like, no, and replaced him and didn't tell him.
So, obviously, with this movie, too, I mean, just, for those who did see it, I mean, obviously, the ones who haven't either, I mean, this thing is more of like an undertone. Like, Billy Joel kind of set the stage for what these session musicians had to go through, especially the ones that were able to stick around for a long time.
Exactly.
But more so than anything, you get to see so many different artists and people, like, even just talking about, certain bands that had to get a replacement and then wind up sticking around, and you don't realize like what they had to go through and like how much of a pressure situation it was for them. Going back to more fanboyism, Jason Newsted jumping in for Cliff Burton after he died.
Exactly.
He was getting paid $500 a week to finish that Master of Puppets tour before he eventually became an actual musician, a part of the band. But obviously, like I said, it's funny because, Bill, when you mention this movie, you're like, you're going to hate Billy Joel after you see this. And I was like, I'm not even a huge fan of Billy Joel, but I wouldn't understand what you meant until obviously you've seen it.
Yeah.
And you get to see the personality because it's just an undertone. Like, they keep revisiting Billy Joel because he's the perfect example of somebody who brings on session musicians and then they become something more. And going back to him, what they said started was his manager ripped him off for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And Liberty DeVito said that created the paranoia. He started getting more like almost fuck everybody. This is my project. I'll just do whatever. Because in the beginning, he was a really solid dude.
Yeah.
He got offered a recording opportunity with a guy who did the Beatles, and he denied it because they wanted session musicians, and Billy Joel refused to give up his guys.
He needed to have his band.
And then they went out and did The Stranger, and The Stranger was excellent. But then you get to see after the paranoia set in, and like you mentioned with keeping the drummer around being Liberty DeVito, he didn't even tell these guys. He just called DeVito up and said, we're about to tour. And he said, what about the rest of the guys? He's like, I'm getting new guys. And he was even telling Billy, like, you got to tell them. And it wasn't until they came out on MTV and said it that
then he
they
said,
found
I'm
out.
fucking Billy Joel. I don't have to do
Yeah,
shit.
and it's a shame, too, because one of the guitarists, they kept both mentioning it. His name was Doug Stegmeyer. He, like, never got over it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you figure almost 30 years now with this guy. I mean, he died in 95, and it was from a suicide.
Yeah.
And now to say, like, to blame Billy Joel would be absolutely ridiculous. But a lot of that, I guarantee you, stemmed from it because you just had this great attachment, and you just got thrown to the side like a piece of garbage.
It's
Why-
like
He didn't.
Go ahead.
I mean, you got to think that at that time, he didn't consider himself. I just play drums for Billy Joel. It was like, they're a band
they're a
together,
band.
and it was like, a family. And then out of nowhere, you're just kicked to the curb like you're a piece of trash.
Well, it's almost like Liberty says in the movie. He's like, when you're not a part of a band anymore, you're still you, but
Yeah.
you're not the same guy you were yesterday.
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
you still have all the same problems you have. You're just not that guy anymore.
And, like, totally, opposite of, with what was going on with Billy Joel and his musicians, you had somebody like Alice Cooper was mentioned a lot in this because Alice Cooper always had just bands, and you get to see like how he was picking these artists. Because even Rob Zombie, I'll bring
Yeah.
in him real quick. He mentioned there's like literally 20 musicians probably that are known to be a part of almost everything.
Yeah.
There's a handful. And he mentioned there was 3 things specifically that really make this musician. First is like you got to be absolutely talented in your, instrument.
But he said
And
that's
he said
not
that is
hard to
literally
find.
the easiest thing to find.
Yep.
And then he said the second thing that'll narrow it down is like you got to be quote unquote cool. Like you got to be up on stage, you got to have a persona, you got to be able to perform. And then the third thing, which is most important, is like can I be around this person 24/7?
Exactly.
And Alice Cooper talking about him again, it's really interesting because total opposite, polar opposite of Billy Joel, especially in his later years. He was just so for his musicians.
Yeah, he said basically when you do your guitar solo, you walk out to the front of the stage. You're now
Yeah,
Alice
and he was
Cooper.
so cool with that. And Jason Hook, who it's just funny. You get obviously you've seen it, but his whole breakdown playing with Mandy Moore, Lizzie McGuire, also known as Hillary Duff, and how Alice found him was him playing with Hillary Duff.
Yeah, exactly.
And he brings him on, and then eventually he wanted to separate and do his own thing, which wound up becoming like the breakthrough for the band that, again, we're going back into the bands love to hate. I'm not a huge fan of, but Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah.
He joined them at their peak.
Right.
And when he said when he had to actually break the news to Alice Cooper, the nerves that kicked in because here was Alice Cooper, big time musician, giving him a chance, and Alice Cooper was just like, absolutely, man.
He
Good
says he
luck.
gives everybody his blessing.
Everyone his blessing because that's what he wants to see. They come there, they grow, they do their own things, and he's like a part of that almost as much as they are. And
Yeah.
to be so supportive, like that's just that constant like circle of music. Like you get to see that.
Well, that's
Yep,
like the same thing
exactly.
you see with Rudy Sarzo, the bassist for Ozzy.
Yeah.
He mentioned that that Ozzy and Sharon would do everything for him. They treated him so well,
Absolutely.
and like it just really makes you feel good about yourself, and you want to work harder for that band as opposed to I hate to keep saying Billy Joel, but I mean if I had to sum up in like 2 sentences about like that whole film, like Billy Joel's a fucking asshole, and it wasn't even just about like the things that people said. Like they showed video clippings of him saying these things.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like oh he said this, well did he? Like no, you see it on the video. Like he said these things, like he just did not care about his people, and that's not you can't treat people like that.
I mean, specifically going back to that, there was a scene where Liberty was trying to get onto a plane.
He had to go home for Easter.
go
Home
my
for
God, yeah.
Easter. He had to be home in time for Easter to see his
be
family.
with his family, right.
And they said there's no room for you on here. And Liberty was literally
It was a
counting the
Boeing
people. He's like,
"747."
there's plenty of room for me. And they specifically said Billy might want to lay down.
And also like in the beginning, I was a little confused because I thought it was like like he just wants to ride on the plane. I didn't realize that he came on that plane,
To
so
get
it wasn't
there. So
like
he had to find his own
there's no
fucking
room.
way
Like
back.
you sat on that plane
That's
coming
like
in,
literally.
but now you can't.
If like go before the days of Uber. That's like if the 3 of us drove to fucking let's say Cleveland to go see the Rock and Roll Hall of
Right.
Fame, and I just I don't like Bill anymore. So me and Will, we're gonna go back. Like sorry,
Yeah, but I
dude,
mean-
it's a 4-seater car. I might want to roll the seat back. That's
Right.
seriously
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
same setting. And
Right.
the difference is in that time there is no like, oh, let me get on my phone and order an Uber. No, this dude's like had to fly a fucking plane here.
Yeah.
Easter's coming up. He literally missed Easter with his family because of that.
Yeah.
And he's asking for scraps. So how's he going to get money for a plane ticket?
And-
Exactly.
but it was nice too because they showed Liberty DeVito. He wrote that note to Billy Joel. Still, just no hard feelings.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
literally, I understood it, and that's the thing with the music industry. It does change people.
I mean,
but
I
some
feel
people
like
it doesn't.
I feel like if that were me, like
You wouldn't have got that type of note.
sight on scene whooped his ass.
Yeah, you wouldn't have got that
Yeah.
type of note first.
Like,
of all.
listen here, you cocksucker. Only the Good Die Young. The only reason that song was as fucking successful as it was because of me.
Pretty much,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, and that's not even a stretch. Like, we heard the little sound clip of what that song would have been.
As a reggae tune.
Yeah, and it was horrible.
Absolutely.
But, you know, like I said, I don't want to turn this into some Billy Joel bashing thing.
Yeah, no, I mean...
But it was definitely a major topic in that movie.
It was an eye-opener, man. And I just wanted to mention, too, specifically from that, just there was a point in time where they mentioned, as a session musician, one of the meccas was being on a Steely Dan track.
Yeah.
And they actually show with Elliot Randall talking about him getting the opportunity and being part of several musicians that were given the opportunity to play a solo for the song that turned out to be Reeling in the Years.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he does the opening solo. And for me, it's very generic. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but
Yeah.
it went to so far. I mean, it's literally...
It worked.
Yeah, it was perfect. And Jimmy Page even came out to say that is his favorite solo of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, and here's this guy, Elliot Randall. Have you guys ever heard
Before
this
this
name until
movie,
this
never heard of
movie?
him.
But you've heard that song, dude. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it's on the radio.
Like, even Derek St. Holmes with Ted Nugent. Like, you said you never
I had
even
no
heard.
clue.
You never even
It's
knew
so
it.
weird because I never was hugely invested, but Stranglehold, I know it because I remember Dazed and Confused when that
Exactly.
song first came out. I was like, oh, that's a badass song. To this day,
Stranglehold's awesome.
until I watched that film, I thought that was Ted singing that.
Yeah.
And then you get to see the guys who actually were a part of it, and it's absolutely fucking cool because some of these guys
crazy.
didn't, and it's cool. Some of these guys didn't want the spotlight. Some of these guys were cool just being the session musicians. Some went on to do better things. I mean, like the one guy who wound up finding and discovering Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Yeah.
and becoming a producer for them.
Yep.
So again, if you haven't seen this, hopefully you have. But if not, we're really just going to recommend this again. I mean, just I would even rewatch this with somebody. For
Absolutely.
the first time.
Dude, this
It's
is the third time I've watched that
It's
movie.
very good.
I thought it was
man.
amazing.
It's so informative.
All right, so let's get into our rating system here.
Yeah, Will, you're not familiar with this. We just do it very generic, scale of 1 to
1
10.
to 10.
We just rate it, and then we kind of average it out and do
Well,
it. So
I guess it's kind of interesting coming from my perspective because I'm not like, you know, this huge like movie or not movie but music fanatic,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
as you guys for like the bands and stuff. But just as I guess if I ranked it as like a documentary, it was really informative, and I'd say I'd probably would give it an 8 out of 10.
That's pretty good.
pretty
right.
solid.
What would you give it, Steve?
I'm going to give it a 7.
A 7?
Yeah. And again, I think, because again, when I talk about the documentary style, I think a lot of it was very bland, because especially when they're interviewing Newstead, he doesn't seem very emphatic about what he's discussing.
Well,
It's
then
like very-
again, would you be if you were Jason?
No, but I'm
Newsted?
saying when he's talking about some of the good things.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
just very like, yeah, man, it was cool. Like, he was just very weird.
Well, he was probably just happy to get some sort of fucking attention.
I know. It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
true.
true. To stay relevant for a second.
Exactly.
Um,
Do we remember Echo Brain?
dude. But I'm really giving it a 7 because, again, I'm not a huge documentary guy, depending on what the topic is.
Yeah.
And for not knowing about this and watching it and learning so much,
Right.
I mean, obviously, I can't give it a perfect score. It's going to take a lot to do that. But a 7, like, dude, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. That was one of the first documentaries outside of like serial killers and the generic things you see on Netflix that I always watch.
Yeah.
This was one of those first music documentaries where I literally learned something I did not know.
Absolutely.
Like constantly. Like
I think
the
that's really the reason why I rated the 8 is because, you know, if I watched this a dozen times, like maybe it wouldn't have such an impact.
Yeah.
But just from not having any concept of an idea and watching this, like, wow, like this is very
now you'll hear
informative.
songs in a totally
Like,
different
you know,
light.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
differently about those songs
I mean,
and
even
about
the Carl's
certain artists.
Jr. ad.
Yeah, exactly. I
Dude,
saw that
wind
too.
up
Yeah.
becoming the voice for Carl's Jr.
Yeah, right?
It's
Carl's
crazy. And Bill,
I'm going to give it an 8 too. It's a fun watch. It keeps you hooked. There's a lot of really good things in there that you never would think about before.
Right.
Like when they talk about Ray Parker Jr. with the Ghostbusters song
Yeah.
and like how that came to be. And, you know, you hear about, you know, Ted Nugent. You hear about how Jason Hook played with all these people. And it's just like the spectrum. It's like, oh, yeah, he played with Mandy Moore, then
Yeah.
Hillary Duff, and Alice Cooper, then Five Finger Death Punch. And
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
just really
what?
goes
Yeah.
from one end
Like,
to
it's
the
just
other.
so crazy. Then, you know, you get into, you know, how you talk about like Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper and Kiss. I was actually surprised they didn't talk more about Kiss with their guitar players like Tommy Thayer and
Yeah.
Eric Carr, Eric
Yeah.
Singer. Like, I don't understand. You know, I don't know why they didn't go farther into that. But
yeah, I
that's-
mean, obviously
they probably
more-
didn't get the rights from Gene.
Yeah, it was more so too, like I said, because Billy Joel's constantly revisited it.
Yeah.
So I think they were trying to get just enough to get you thinking, because then you're going to start to do your own research. Like, there's a lot of things I immediately Googled afterwards to learn
Yeah,
about certain
I
bands,
bet.
and then Googled that name specifically, saw what they were a part of more
Yep.
than that. Yeah, I mean,
All right. Well, unfortunately, Rotten Tomatoes gave this a 50%,
Yeah,
but the audience score was a 73.
which is like right where we're at. We're
Exactly.
at like 7.6.
Yeah.
Yeah, average.
Common Sense Media, I've never heard of them. I don't know if they're credible or not, but they
Right.
gave it a 2 out of 5, which is,
Not so common sense.
no.
Whatever.
IMDb gave it a 7.2 out of 10, which is right on par too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, IMDb is a very credible source.
True.
The reviews, Brad Newsom from the Sydney Morning Herald says the player's sheer love of music shines through everything. Benjamin Smith from Decider says, like the musician whose technique overshadows their expressiveness, there's simply too much going on, even if a lot of it is good. Then David Butterworth, I wonder if he's related to Mrs. Butterworth, from the La movie Boif, says, an A-list roster of session musicians on tour with the likes of Kiss, Pink, and Billy Joel get their 15 minutes of fame in director Fran Strine's slick and professional tribute. That's another one we didn't bring up too, is Pink and how well she treats all of her musicians.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And like it's Pink.
We don't think about it. You just hear Pink, and you don't really think about people who play behind them. I mean,
Exactly.
I took my wife, last year, for instance, like we'll just use an example, like Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
He had his concert. Like you think, oh, okay, Justin Timberlake, that's great. Like I can't tell you how many people were on stage. Like not just dancers. We're talking about like musicians. Playing the drums, guitars, instruments. It was just the amount of people that he has on tour with him who make that whole thing possible. It's
exactly.
Just, it's crazy.
All right. We're going to get into our personal suggestions this week. I'll start this one off. We briefly talked about, we talked about them a good bit last week. My suggestion this week is to listen to the album The Sound of Perseverance from the band Depth.
Yeah, we did mention that last week. That is probably the easiest one to start off if you're going to
Yep.
get into the band. But that album, the musicianship
It's
quality
amazing.
behind it, the drumming
Insane.
alone. I
Yep.
mean, and Chuck's guitar work, his vocals.
It's probably the best.
It's in my opinion, it's not because again, me and you differ in our sounds.
Yeah.
But out of their more technical, first of all, I can't pick a best Death album. They're all so different. I mean,
Yeah,
Symbolic and Sound of
Well, that's what I mean. But I mean, as far as like the songwriting went,
it's so good.
I feel like it might be the best.
I mean, I can't stand when people talk about like the filler aspect. Like this was just a
Yeah,
control
it's
denied,
stupid.
quick, put in there. Dude, it's just such a well done album.
yeah, exactly. I
Such
agree.
a well done album.
What do you got for us, Will?
Well, I'd say that my suggestion would be actually my favorite band is a band called Trapped. They're from Los Gatos, California. Their second album, it's just titled Trapped from 2002. I think that would probably be between that and the Someone in Control from 2005 album. Those two albums are definitely my favorite. It's a different kind of rock music. It's not, it's not heavy. It's not crazy. It's kind of just almost like alternative, I guess. But
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend listening to them. They do have some good tracks. You probably heard Headstrong on the radio.
Oh,
It's probably
absolutely.
the only one you ever hear. But it's definitely some good music to listen into. That'd be my suggestion.
Awesome. What do you got, Steve?
So my suggestion is going to be a thrash band, Death Angel. I mean, they've been around for a long time. This is actually their 9th studio album, just came out May 31st. The album's called Humanicide. I haven't listened to it yet. I mean, Death Angel, I was a huge fan of the Ultraviolence, which is, one of their most hailed albums. They were huge in the early thrash scene. But yeah, they just came out with a new album. It's their 9th effort. Came out on the 31st of May. It's called Humanicide. I definitely check it out. I'm also going to give it a listen. Probably as soon as we're done here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and our group suggestion this week, I should just call this the movie suggestion because this is literally what it is.
Yeah.
This week we are going to suggest the movie Singles. It's a movie directed by Cameron Crowe in 1992. Some could say it's the precursor to the TV show Friends. There's
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of notable Seattle grunge bands in this movie. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. They're featured in this movie. It's one of those movies where there's not really like a full blown plot, but it's just a fun thing to watch. So that's our suggestion this week is Singles.
Yeah. Great movie.
Yeah.
Overall, especially to get just it's got that whole 90s.
Yeah,
vibe. I
it's
love
just
those
like
movies. Yeah.
it's like we were talking about with the whole nostalgia feel.
Yeah.
Like you watch it and immediately puts you in that place.
You get to see some good cameos too between like Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam,
Yeah.
as well as even Chris Cornell in one scene. Is
like
really fucking
what is it?
fun.
Eddie Vedder's the drummer
Yeah, you
in
can
the
see
band.
Alice in Chains in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, guys, so that wraps it up for this week. We'd like to thank Will for joining us.
Yes, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking
Absolutely,
the time.
buddy. Anytime.
Yeah, anytime you want to come
Well,
on, man.
I guess what in
give
that
us a
case I'll
call.
have to come back.
Well,
Now,
def-
I'd say I may not know a lot, or I should say as much as you guys about music, but if you want to talk about movies, that's something I could really.
Oh, we're gonna
cast
expand,
in on
dude.
through.
Trust me.
So, how was your first podcasting experience?
I had to say I enjoyed it.
You did?
I enjoyed the
Yeah.
I enjoyed the experience.
Definitely
I
do
was
it again?
A little nervous at first, but yeah, I would as long as I feel relevant. I mean, if I come on and have no, I don't want to make. I mean, opinions you can throw all day long. Anybody
Yeah,
can throw opinions
absolutely.
at each other, but
Just facts,
as
yeah.
far as throwing facts, if I don't know about it, I don't really like to go in and say things that I don't know
Teaching
what I'm talking about.
opportunity, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for this week.
All right.
I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Will.
Thanks for listening to Rage Against the Mainstream. We are signing off. Have a good night, guys.